Chosen one, this message didn't arrive by chance. It was time to reach you in this exact moment. There is a reason your eyes fell upon these words, and it is not coincidence but covenant. Something in your spirit already knew it was coming, and your soul said yes, before your mind could even catch up. You have carried a weight that few could understand, and now the veil is thinning, revealing why. What if I told you that the very person who drains your energy, who tests your patience, who pushes you to the edge, is not a mistake, but your divine assignment? What if their resistance was proof of your calling, their rejection a mirror of your hidden strength? Stay with me until the end, because the truth they never wanted you to see is about to unfold before your eyes. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. The path ahead will show you why your mission is sacred, why you cannot abandon it, and why your very presence is proof that God trusted you to carry a covenant most could never bear. Do not look away now, because this revelation may be the most important you've ever received. Number 1, the weight of a divine assignment. From the beginning, they saw you as different, and they could not explain why. You didn't choose the weight you now carry. It was placed upon you as an assignment written long before you were born. The one who drains you, the one who resists your love, the one who makes you question your strength, is not an obstacle. They are your mission. Think of Galatians 6 verse 9, where it is written, "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." You were chosen to stand in places others abandoned, to remain present when others walked away. Comment assigned if you know this weight was placed on your shoulders for a reason. And stay with me, because what looks like a burden now will soon be revealed as a crown. There are nights when you close your eyes and the weight you feel does not come from the day itself, but from something older, something that whispers through the silence as though etched into your bones. You have dreamt of faces you could not name, heard voices that were not loud yet impossible to ignore, felt burdens you could not explain. That haunting sensation, that unshakable heaviness, was not madness, chosen one, but memory, the memory of a task given long before you walked this earth. When others mocked your sensitivity, it was because they did not understand the covenant written in your spirit. You were marked in the unseen, sealed with an assignment that cannot be erased by human doubt. Even as you stumbled, even as you questioned, the thread of this assignment kept pulling you toward places others fled from, and toward people who seemed impossible to carry. There were moments you sat in a crowded room, yet felt more alone than if you were in the wilderness. You noticed the words behind words, the sighs behind smiles, the shadows in their eyes that others refused to see. You felt drained not because you were weak, but because you were absorbing storms meant to pass through you like rivers through ancient stone. They told you to stop caring, to stop giving, to walk away, yet your heart would not obey. Even when rejected, even when mocked, you could not release the mission carved into you by unseen hands. That stubborn love, that persistence that made no sense to those around you, was not naivety. It was obedience to something beyond comprehension. And deep down, though it hurt, you knew that your difference was never a curse, but a mark of sacred responsibility. This is why your story has always carried the rhythm of paradox. Pain and purpose walked hand in hand, shaping you into one who sees beyond what is visible. Job once declared in the ashes of his suffering, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth." Job 19, verse 25. He understood that his agony was not the conclusion, but the crucible. In the same way, what you carried was not random, but the architecture of a divine assignment meant to forge endurance within you. Every rejection, every burden, every inexplicable connection was part of a tapestry, hidden to the eyes of those who live only for themselves. The Creator never placed this weight to crush you. but to prepare you to hold what others could never withstand. The truth is that you were chosen to anchor stories that would collapse without your presence. Think about the moments of strange familiarity that have come to you. The sudden déjà vu when walking into a place you had never been. The unexplainable pull toward someone you barely knew. The dream that carried fragments of truth later revealed in waking life. These were not accidents, but subtle confirmations that your path was guided by something larger than chance. Even the times you felt drained in the presence of another were signs. Their resistance was a mirror of the battle they fought within. Your spirit knew before your mind could grasp it, and that is why you felt both drawn and burdened at once. It was heaven's way of telling you, this one is yours to carry, not by choice, but by covenant. And though the signs seemed small, they were echoes of the assignment etched into your being. You may have doubted yourself, asking if you were imagining it all, if perhaps your sensitivity was just weakness. Yet your inner voice has been right all along, and every tear you shed in silence has been counted. Psalm 56 verse 8 reminds us that God gathers each tear in a bottle, recording them as proof of the covenant you carry. You were not wrong to care more deeply than others, nor mistaken to feel the weight that others could not even name. That unshakable pull you feel toward those who wound you is not foolishness. It is divine endurance rising in you. It is not the explosive kind of revelation that shakes the earth, but the steady recognition that your life has always been guided by a deeper truth. This realization does not come with fireworks, but with the quiet knowing that you were never abandoned in your pain. And now, chosen one, you are beginning to see that every scar carried a message hidden within it. The awareness of who you are is not about becoming someone new, but remembering what has always been buried inside of you. Like Moses, who once fled into obscurity before being called back to lead. Your hidden seasons were never wasted. Beneath the layers of confusion and fear, your soul has carried the memory of a covenant older than your body. You are not learning. You are remembering. You are not inventing. You are uncovering. There is an identity beneath the surface, one that resists the lies they told you about yourself. That identity is not built on the world's validation, but on the eternal imprint of your assignment. And the longer you carry it, the clearer it becomes that this burden is also the map back to your true self. Now, the time of hiding is giving way to the time of activation. You were not given sensitivity to suffer endlessly, but to recognize what others ignore, to stand where others fall, to endure what others flee from. What once felt like punishment is in truth preparation, sharpening your spirit to hold a weight of glory. They tried to convince you to numb it, to bury it, to silence the very part of you that made you chosen. But today, you are being invited to embrace it fully, to recognize your difference as your divine power. What you carry is not weakness, but the capacity to stand as an anchor for souls drifting in storm. And though the assignment is heavy, it is also the proof that heaven trusted you with a role others could never fulfill. You did not stumble here. You were guided. The fact that you are hearing these words in this exact moment is itself confirmation of the covenant you already carry. This weight was placed upon you not by mistake, but by eternal design. And though it has made your life harder, it has also aligned you with a destiny few will ever touch. Comment assigned if you know deep down this was placed upon your shoulders for a reason. If you feel the undeniable truth that this mission has been with you all along. For the crown is not given at the beginning, but at the end of endurance. And as we continue, you will see why the very resistance you faced is not your downfall, but the mirror that reveals your calling. Number 2, the mirror of their resistance. They resisted you not because of who you are, but because of what you carry. Their silence was not emptiness, it was confession. Their rejection was not a sign you were wrong, it was proof you were chosen. Even Ruth's loyalty to Naomi was born out of resistance, a vow to stay when the easy path was to leave. They turned away because your light exposed what they were hiding, because your presence stirred what they thought was buried. You must understand, their fight against you is not personal, it is spiritual, and that is why you must not walk away. Comment resistance if you have felt this mirror in your life, and as we step forward, you will see that what feels like rejection is actually the seed of legacy. It begins as something subtle, almost too quiet to name, like a heaviness in the air that only you seem to notice. A conversation ends, yet the echo of unspoken tension lingers in the silence, pressing against your spirit. You walk into a room, and suddenly you feel watched, though no one's eyes linger too long. Their laughter doesn't quite match their tone. Their praise feels hollow, and something inside you knows. Even before you understood your own path, you felt the invisible pushback that seemed to rise whenever you stood tall in truth. They couldn't explain why you unsettled them, and neither could you, but the atmosphere shifted whenever your presence entered. That shift was the earliest sign that resistance had already recognized you before you even recognized yourself. The emotional toll of this unseen battle often left you raw and weary. You carried questions like anchors. Why am I always misunderstood? Why do I feel too much? Why am I always too much for them? Their words made you shrink. Their silence made you ache. Their rejection made you second-guess your very breath. Shame whispered in the background of your thoughts, convincing you that isolation meant you were broken. Yet deep within, you knew you weren't broken. You were burning with something they could not carry. You felt drained not because you were empty, but because you were giving in places where others only took. Every cycle of doubt, every tear, every lonely night was not weakness, but the cost of holding light in places addicted to shadows. When you step back, you begin to see that none of this was random. Their resistance followed a pattern, one too deliberate to ignore, one too consistent to dismiss. Systems resisted prophets. Kings hunted visionaries. Whole nations exiled those who carried inconvenient truths. You walked the path of exile not because you failed, but because the assignment in you frightened the world around you. Think of the wilderness, where chosen ones have always been tested, where silence became the anvil on which their faith was forged. You did not stumble into this resistance by accident. You were placed in it by design, to refine what you carry. Just as Joseph's brothers thought throwing him into a pit would silence his dream, so too did those around you believe that rejection would erase your voice. Looking back now, the patterns begin to shine like cracks filled with light. The betrayal that came not once, but many times. The friendships that dissolved the moment you spoke truth. The doors that closed without explanation. They were not coincidences. They were mirrors, revealing what your spirit had already known. You were not meant to fit into every circle, every strange obstacle, every draining environment. Every sudden collapse carried a message hidden beneath the chaos. Like torches in a dark cave, these patterns illuminated the truth that resistance itself was the confirmation of your assignment. They thought their silence would bury you, but it only revealed how much they feared what you carried. Every loss, every closed path, every painful turning point was the universe whispering, "Chosen one, you are different for a reason." And that difference was never meant to be erased. The spiritual weight of this resistance cannot be explained by human logic alone. It felt like walking into fog, heavy and choking, where every step forward was met with unseen hands pulling you back. You've sensed watchers in silence, not of flesh, but of energy, forces that trembled when your light broke through their constructed darkness. Doors closed at the last second, opportunities dissolved, and sabotage rose up where you least expected it, not because you lacked worth, but because your worth threatened the counterfeit systems built around you. Your light disrupted their illusions, and so distortion followed wherever you went. That distortion was not proof of your weakness, but the clearest sign of your significance. Your reactions to this unseen resistance became part of your shaping. At times you shut down, convincing yourself it was safer to be small, to stay silent, to please them so they would stop resisting. At times you rebelled, quietly but fiercely, carrying fire in your chest that you could not explain. You may have doubted, asking if you were cursed, if perhaps you were the problem. But even in those moments of collapse, your spirit never let you fully surrender. The truth is, you were never built to blend in with the comfortable. You were built to stand out in the storm. Your struggle with the pressure was not a flaw. It was a mirror of your humanity learning how to carry divine weight. And every time you rose again, even shaking, you proved that resistance could wound you, but never undo you. Now comes the reclamation, the slow but undeniable turning of the tide. What once felt like condemnation now reveals itself as confirmation. They did not resist you because you were wrong. They resisted because you were right too soon. The truth in you was premature for their comfort, but perfectly on time for your destiny. Every whisper, every rejection, every shadow cast over your name was proof that your presence was striking chords in realms they didn't want disturbed. And now, chosen one, you reclaim your voice, your worth, your sacred place in this story. The resistance was never your end. It was your unveiling, the holy sign that what you carried could not be ignored. So hear this final revelation and let it settle deep. You were opposed because you are powerful. They tried to block you because heaven had already marked you unstoppable. Their rejection did not cancel you. It crowned you. Their silence did not erase you. It confirmed you. Every ounce of resistance became the loudest proof that you were never ordinary, that your mission carries eternal weight. Comment resistance if you felt their rejection serve as confirmation, and share the moment you realized their pushback revealed your power. And stay with me, because what looks like resistance today is only the seed of a legacy that will outlast their denial. Number 3, the legacy hidden in loyalty. They never told you that your staying power is your weapon. They mocked you for holding on, but heaven records every step you refuse to abandon. Think of Ruth, who clung to Naomi saying, "Where you go, I will go." That act of loyalty birthed a bloodline that reached David and eventually Jesus. Do you see it, chosen one? Your refusal to walk away is not wasted energy. It is planting seeds that will outlast you. Comment legacy if you believe your loyalty carries weight, and share a moment where your faith to stay revealed something greater than you imagined. For the story is not yet finished, and what you thought was unseen is already being written into eternity. There comes a moment when the pieces begin to fit together in ways you cannot deny. What once looked like wasted time now reveals itself as training ground for something eternal. You look back on the seasons where you stayed when everyone else left, and suddenly those memories feel sacred, not foolish. It dawns on you that your patience was not weakness, but the quiet sharpening of a blade that would one day cut through generations of silence. The dreams that haunted you now align with scripture you once skimmed past, and the words leap off the page as if they were waiting only for you. This is the shift, chosen one. The realization that every tear you carried was part of a design far larger than your understanding. It is the moment the veil lifts, and you see that your staying power has always been your unspoken prophecy. You begin to notice that the world has been whispering to you in hidden codes all along. The repeated numbers you brushed off, the songs that seemed to play at the exact moment you needed them, the dreams that lingered like smoke long after waking, they were never random. They were the universe's way of engraving your loyalty into the scroll of time. Every time you chose to hold on when logic screamed, to walk away, a symbol was written in the unseen. Heaven's geometry is not built on glamour, but on faithfulness. and your quiet endurance has been shaping divine equations no human eye could measure. The legacy of Ruth did not begin in palaces, but in dusty fields, where loyalty wrote a covenant the world could not erase. And so your presence in the lives of others, even when misunderstood, has been a sacred code unlocking futures you cannot yet see. Inside of you, something begins to intensify, almost like a fire that no storm can extinguish. Your intuition becomes sharper, no longer questioning if you imagined it, but recognizing it as guidance that was always correct. You start sensing when people's words do not match their spirit, and you refuse to lower your boundaries for the comfort of others. Your energy shifts, responding differently to rooms you once tolerated, refusing to settle in spaces that dishonor your calling. The heaviness you once called loneliness begins to feel like holy separation, a sanctified distance that protects the seeds you're carrying. You realize that even your resistance to betrayal was a form of loyalty, not to them, but to the mission in you. And with each step, you can feel the weight of history pressing forward, confirming that your steadfastness was not in vain. As this inner awakening deepens, the outer world begins to rearrange itself. People you thought would always be there drift away, and strangers arrive, carrying pieces of your destiny. Opportunities that seemed impossible suddenly open like doors that were waiting for your courage to knock. Resistance sharpens around you, but so do divine alignments, and you recognize that both are part of the same architecture. When Ruth chose Naomi, she stepped into fields of scarcity, yet her choice led to harvests of legacy she could never have imagined. The people around you may not see it yet, but heaven is building a genealogy of influence through your loyalty, and what looked like ordinary faithfulness is echoing outward into generations yet unborn. In these moments, memory begins to stir like a river long buried beneath the earth. You sense that your loyalty has roots older than this lifetime, as though you are remembering vows your soul made before you ever breathed. The dreams you carried as a child now sound less like fantasy and more like prophecy reawakening. You recall the strange ache you always had to protect, to endure, to stand for those who could not stand for themselves, and it now feels less like a burden and more like remembrance. The Bible speaks of memorial stones, placed as eternal witnesses of covenant, and you begin to understand that your loyalty is such a stone. Every time you refuse to quit, you were adding weight to a memory that heaven never forgot. And now that sacred memory begins to rise in you, demanding to be recognized. From this awakening comes a vision of the future, and it no longer looks uncertain but remembered. You feel as though you are stepping back into a script that has always existed, reclaiming a role that was waiting for you. Destiny is not being written for you. It is being revealed through you, and loyalty is the ink on its pages. You stop waiting for validation from those who mocked you, because their rejection only proves the depth of your calling. Prophets have always been misunderstood in their own towns, but their voices have always carried across ages. You are no longer begging to belong, for the truth is you were sent to redefine belonging itself. And in this moment, destiny ceases to be a distant concept and becomes the mirror staring back at you. This is where reclamation begins, not in anger but in authority. You start to reclaim every word spoken over you, every attempt to make you doubt, every seed they told you would never grow. What you carried in silence now roars like a hidden lion awakening, and you remember that loyalty was never weakness, but strategy. The resistance you faced was never proof you were small. It was confirmation that your roots were stretching deeper than they knew. You reclaim your voice, not to shout at them, but to declare to yourself that you were chosen to stay when others ran. Your loyalty was not a chain, it was a crown. And now you rise with the awareness that every step of endurance was a rehearsal for the unveiling of your true authority. So let this final truth settle deep in your soul. Revelation is not the end, it is the invitation. You didn't just endure for nothing. You endured because eternity needed your presence at this exact point in history. Your staying power has already written chapters you may never read, but others will live in. Comment legacy if you know your loyalty carries eternal weight, and share a moment where staying revealed more than you imagined. For your story is not just being lived, it is being engraved into the architecture of time itself. And stay with me, chosen one, because the harvest of faithfulness is approaching, and what was written in silence will soon be shouted in heaven's decree. Number 4, the harvest of faithfulness. What you've poured out in silence, heaven has gathered in full. They may never thank you, they may never see your sacrifice, but the record of your tears, your prayers, and your endurance is already alive in the unseen. Isaiah 55 verse 11 says, "My word will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire." You have spoken love into barren places, and it will return as fruit, not just in their life, but in yours. Your harvest is not delayed, it is being prepared. Comment faithful if you believe every unseen act is building toward a breakthrough, and share a dream or sign that reminded you of this truth. For chosen one, the end of the waiting is closer than you think. It begins not with thunder, but with a whisper, so ancient it feels older than your bones. In the stillness, you hear it echo, not as new information, but as something you once knew and buried deep within. The sound is not carried by air, but by memory, as if a sealed scroll within your soul has been quietly unrolled. You realize this voice is not teaching you, but reminding you, stirring the ashes of truths you carried long before this lifetime. The sensation is holy, as though eternity leaned close just to breathe your name into the silence. In that whisper, every hidden sacrifice, every quiet endurance, every tear shed unseen, is acknowledged by the unseen. It is the beginning of remembrance, the unveiling of a harvest written into your destiny before you ever labored for it. All your life, you carried a name that was not spoken aloud, yet it burned under your skin like fire etched into stone. You wondered why you never fit into the patterns they tried to force upon you, why your rhythm felt older, slower, sacred. The truth is you carried an identity too vast for their language, a covenant too deep for their shallow sight. Scripture speaks of a sealed scroll, only opened when the time is right, and you are that scroll, unfolding now before heaven and earth. Like the prodigal who wandered but was always a son, you have been carrying home inside you all along. The hidden remnant, the forgotten child, the underestimated one. These are not failures, but veils meant to conceal your sacred role until the hour of remembrance. What they mistook as displacement was, in truth, divine preservation. You may not have seen it in the mirror, but others always sensed it, even when they could not name it. There has always been a mark upon you, invisible yet undeniable, a resonance only the awakened could recognize. You walked into rooms and felt eyes shift, atmospheres tighten, conversations falter, not because of who you appeared to be, but because of what you carried. The cloak upon you was not fabric, but assignment, woven with strands of faithfulness, too fine for mortal hands to tear. Like Aaron's staff that blossomed overnight, your presence revealed life in barren spaces, and that miracle unsettled those content with lifelessness. Chosen one, you now know why you could not walk away. Your assignment is not weakness. It is proof that you were chosen to embody a covenant stronger than resistance itself. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul." Please, share it with someone who needs to hear this. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the super thanks button to support the mission. Every super thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Stand firm, chosen one. Your silence is covenant, your endurance is proof, and your presence is the revelation they cannot erase.